Hey guys, welcome to Adventures of Ty. What's going on? Y'all, if this is your first time joining me, welcome. My name is Ty. I go by Ty, but my name is Tyanthabrown. And I moved to Mexico over 2 years ago with my 3 kids and my dad. It was probably one of the toughest decisions that I ever made in my life, but I look back now and I truly believe it was one of the best decisions that I ever made. I was living in the United States, living, life as a single black mom, 3 children, and at the time my dad, he wasn't living with me, but my mom, she passed away. It was right before COVID happened. And that was devastating for me. When my mom passed away, I couldn't see it any other way. That was one of the things that my mom, I had always talked about. If anything ever happens to me, you take care of your dad. And so my dad came to live with me and my 3 kids, and we were there living, as best as we could in a small house. It was a mobile home, a 3-bedroom home, and it was tight because of my own financial issues. At that time, I didn't have any options, I should say. I was kind of stuck. And so 3 years go by and I decide, hey, I'm ready, I'm done. I was kind of done with everything, really. I was working a really good job, and the things were great. We weren't really struggling, just kind of living life, not necessarily check to check, but there were some months where it might have been a little bit tough, but for the most part we were doing fairly well. But just not in a position where I could move. I had a eviction on my record, and this was from a past, whatever relationship, things didn't work out, and so I left, and hey, it is what it is. It was on my record, and because of that, it stays on your record for 7 years. Because of that, I wasn't able to move. And so and then just other stuff that I got myself in. I was paying $700 a month for a car, and just things were just tough. I worked so much, I didn't have a lot of time for myself, let alone my children, and I was just at the point where I was just done, just ready to just throw my hands up and just be done. So I've always looked outside of the box, and so I really just started looking around at places that I could move. I knew I couldn't live nowhere in the United States, with an eviction. There were other options that I could have probably taken, but I had tried all of that. The eviction had been on my record for maybe like 3 years, and I looked at, trying to, have it removed, other options, but basically what it boiled down to, it was there. And so I started looking outside of the United States. And when I first initially, started looking out of the United States, I was like, well, I want to move to Italy. It seemed beautiful, and just a place that appealed to me. And I started doing my research, and Italy was just way too expensive. And so started looking at places that were affordable and safe, because again, I have my 3 kids with me, and met it in Mexico kept popping up, and now because of YouTube, you're able to just kind of search Merida, Merida with kids, and how safe is, and different things like that. And in that research, I found a YouTuber that I just started diving into all of their videos, and once I got to a point where I was like, okay, this might be possible. I just started kind of putting all my ducks in a row. Like, okay, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna make this transition? And I'm the type of person, once I set my mind to something, I'm gonna do it. And so things move pretty quickly. It took a total of maybe 6 months for everything to come to pass. I started downsizing, getting rid of stuff, either giving it away, selling it, throwing it away, whatever needed to be done. I started that process first. And once my house started getting empty, basically, I was like, okay, now I need more time to really designate to planning this, because it's a lot. You're basically deciding to move you and your whole family out of the country to a foreign place. And so I was working a very good job, a 9-to-5 job, making very good money, but I was away from home all the time. And so I searched for an at-home job, and I found it. And once I found that job and it was secure, I put in my notice. People thought I was crazy. I put in like a month notice, and I started slowly telling people, I'm moving to Mexico. And they were like, girl, what in the world? It took me a month to just kind of process it. So once I had it processed, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, this is why I'm going to do it, this is how I'm going to do it, I didn't tell a lot of people because I didn't want to even hear all the questions. I didn't want to hear what they do, why, any of that. So I told very few people. But yeah, the people at my job, they was like, girl, okay. I don't think they really believed that I was going to do it. And so my final days of my month notice, I remember, the company, it was a great company, and they really cared about me. A lot of the people that I had become, my friends, or, work associates, whatever you want to call it, they really cared about me. I cared about them. And so it was a sad moment, in that particular time. And, but yeah, I put in my notice, worked it, left, started working my at-home job, which allowed me more time, because they put me in training, and so it was really easy to kind of like do other stuff in the midst of that. My mind, it didn't involve a lot of thought process like my other job did. It took a lot of my time, a lot of my energy. And so this new job that I took from home was just easier. So I was able to kind of, do the applications, because I or anybody in my family, in my household, had ever been out of the country, so we didn't have passports. So I was able to do the applications for me and my kids and my dad, put that application in, start, researching, book my plane tickets, all of that stuff. I reached out to the YouTuber Cortez Ross, that a lot of you guys might know. Reached out to him, booked a consultation, booked his, he basically found houses. He would find houses for people, and so I booked that package. And once my plane tickets were set and time started winding down, it was like it's time to go. I'll never forget, we had like 2 months left, and so I made this 2-month calendar, and every day I would X off the days, like, okay, we one day closer. And I wanted to go a whole lot sooner, but my kids, of course, they were in school, so I wanted to wait at least until the end of that school year. And so we left in like June, 1st of June. That whole experience was crazy. Again, I had flown before, but my kids had never flown. My dad had only flown once. And so I remember, of course, I put my time notice or whatever you want to call it, 30-day notice into my house that I was renting. And so once everything was gone, and it was like a week before I moved out, and I was able to move in with my kid's grandmother, my ex-mother-in-law. Moved in with her for 1 week, and we lived pretty much out of our car because we had packed up everything. The only thing we really had was suitcases. I think I assigned like 3 suitcases to each one of us. It was like 2 big suitcases and a small suitcase. How I imagine all of us, carrying all that, I don't know, but I was like, we gonna make it happen. I remember just buying all types of stuff, that I thought that I needed, and packing, repacking, all of that stuff. But we stayed at my mom. I still call her my mom. My ex-mother-in-law, stayed at her house for a week. I remember the night before, I don't know, I just, in my mind, I had already prayed about it. I had asked God to, just guide me. And so I was kind of on autopilot. I remember waking up that next morning like, oh my God, this is really happening. Like, this is it. I done reached the point of no return. It's like, okay, we gotta go. So woke up that morning, and because we had been living, all my stuff was like still in the car. I didn't want to bring like all these suitcases into my mother-in-law's house. So we would just like take 1 suitcase or so out, every day to try to go through and find what we're gonna wear, this and that. So that morning, I remember I just felt like things were just all out of order. All my packing that I had done, things had kind of been mixed and matched around, and I was just so but I have 3 children and my dad, so inside I was playing it cool, like everything is smooth, we got this, I got this. So we drove to Charlotte. We flew out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm from North Carolina, by the way, but we flew out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I remember getting to the airport. Oh my God, everything was so crazy. Pulled up, got out. I got all these suitcases, and now it's like, okay, all this stuff in my mind that I had planned out, now it's in play. And because we had so many suitcases, it was crazy. I didn't know where to go. It was just crazy. That was like the first time I started panicking. Like, is this really gonna happen? We get to the place where you check in, and the guy is like, look, you're not gonna make it. Your flight leaves like within about 20 minutes, and we ain't even checked you in. You're not gonna make it. And my heart just like sunk, like, this is not possible. We gotta get on that plane. My ex-husband, my son's dad, he ended up getting a ticket because he pretty much pulled up and let us out, and it was a no parking spot. So he ended up getting a ticket. We had missed the flight. Thankfully, by God's grace, they were able to book us on the next flight, which was like an hour and a half later. So we sat in the airport. It gave me a moment to just kind of regroup, because I was just like, oh my God, this is going way left. So I had to regroup and get myself back together. But then, it's time to get on the flight. We get on the flight. I had booked these seats and, at a discounted rate. So we all sat in separate areas. I could kind of still see my kids. My kids at the time were 16 and 10. And so, or 11, something like that. But yeah, we all sat in separate seats. And, of course I prayed like, Lord, just get us there. Just get us there. And we rode that flight. I had kind of, like I said, planned out everything. I knew that we were gonna take this flight from Charlotte to Cancun, which, I'll do all my research and all of that. I was told that, in Cancun, I would get my full 180 days. So it was like, okay, boom, we're gonna get this flight, get to Cancun, and then I knew I had to take a bus to Merida, Mexico, which was my destination. And so we take this 3-hour flight. which was pretty smooth. Go from all the crazy, hectic, just crazy energy in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we land in Cancun, and things are just kind of a lot more peaceful. The people at the airport were very nice. They got all my luggage together and was like, okay, boom. We get outside of the airport and it's madness. People are like, oh, let me take you taxis, and all type of, people are trying to take you here and there. And my next step was to take the auto bus. And so I'm like, let me bypass all of this. Let me do what I'm supposed to do. So we get on the auto bus, which was like a 4-hour bus ride. Pretty nice. It had a bathroom. And so it was a 4-hour bus ride. We get there to the bus station after this 4-hour drive, and it's like, now I got to get to my Airbnb, which I had booked for a week until I found a house. And so we at the bus station, and I got all these bags, and it's just so crazy. I'm like, oh my God, how are we gonna get to this Airbnb? And thankfully there were like taxis outside of the Airbnb. So one of the guys had another taxi driver. The two of them got us to our Airbnb. It took 2 because we had so much luggage, and then 5 of us. They ended up charging, it was like $50. $50 per car. So it was $100 to get us from the bus station to the Airbnb. We ended up spending like $100 at the Cancun airport because we ended up eating. The wait time for the bus that we ended up taking was like an hour. So I had already spent like a lot of money. I spent a lot more money at the airport leaving out because I had overpacked, and I paid the addition, which was like $75. I think I had maybe like 5 or 6 big oversized luggage. So it was like $75 for each of those large pieces of luggage. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, money is just, it's just going. Of course, I had saved money and this and that, but I'm like, this is I pretty much am spending a whole lot more than I expected. So we finally get to the Airbnb. The Airbnb was pretty cool. It looked just like the picture. And we get in, and that was like, okay, we're here. We were exhausted, of course, but we were, ready to just get out and venture out. We got there, it was nighttime, so my dad, of course, he's like, look, I'm finna call it a night. I'm going to sleep. Me and the kids, we get out, we start walking. It's nighttime. We ain't never been in nowhere out the country ever, but we decide we're gonna get out and we're gonna venture out and tour, Mexico. When I tell you we got lost in this little neighborhood, and we trying to find our way back. All we knew was, we thought it was Calais, C-A-L-L-E. So we going around, anybody we could see. We knew the number of our street, so we going around asking people, Calais, whatever. It's 46, and they like, what? Because we had walked so far, we didn't realize that there were different areas. So it could be a Calais 46, but it could be on the corner of this and over. They didn't know what we were asking for because we didn't even speak Spanish. So needless to say, we ended up getting back to the Airbnb safely, and woke up that next morning. That next morning I want to tell you, it was one of the best mornings I'd ever had in my life. I'm waking up in a new country, and I feel so proud of myself. I feel excited, that I did it, and we made it, safely. Everything kind of just fell right into place, and I was thankful, thankful to God that, he allowed it to happen. And so the following day, I met up with Cortez, and that same day we found a house. I think it was like the 3rd try. We found a fully furnished house in budget. You know, I think the house was like $750 a month, US dollars, which was, you know, for a fully furnished house. That was a deal for me. I was coming from paying over $1,000 a month for a 3-bedroom trailer. This house that we had found was this humongous 3-bedroom with an additional service room house, fully furnished. These rooms were immaculate, and when I say fully furnished, it was everything. Each room was furnished, beautifully decorated. Just to me, it looked like a mansion. I'm like, I ain't never been in a house this big in my life. And so got there, and it was great. You know, of course we had challenges. When you move to a new country, you're going to have challenges. The biggest was the language barrier. We didn't speak Spanish, me or my kids or my dad. And just kind of learning our way, finding our way. There were a lot of mistakes that I made that I look back now like, dang, if I'd have knew then. But through it all, God was with us, and we made it through. We're now in our second home, bigger home. You know, just it's been a great time here in Mexico for myself, for my kids, for my dad. 2 years later, I just look back at all the experiences, and I'm just in awe. Like, we've learned so much. We've met so many amazing people. I started my YouTube channel, and I now have, oh my gosh, almost 1,500 subscribers. I'm monetized, so I make money. I make that YouTube money now. I now have offered my services to help people, you know, just like me, who are interested in moving, or have moved, or wanting to move, whatever the case may be. If you're trying to get to Mexico, you know, I have offered my services, and I've helped quite a few people who are still here, still in their same home, and still loving it. I have, you know, just gone through so much, y'all, so much, but I'm so blessed, so thankful, and I want to say, you know, thank you guys. You know, I don't get to, you know, it's been a long time, y'all, since I sat, you know, face to face on camera. So I do want to take this time to thank you guys, all of the people that have watched my channel, that have subscribed to my channel, that have made donations to me. Oh my gosh, I've had so many people, y'all, that have sent me and my family donations, whether it just be birthdays, just for lunch, to help, you know, with some of the setbacks that we have had. I thank you guys. I thank you guys for all the comments, all the encouraging words, you know, just the kindness that you have shown me and my family. I do read a lot of the comments. Sometimes, you know, y'all, I be so busy, so I may not respond to all of them, but I promise you, I do read them, and I am so appreciative to you guys for that.